Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Casual Sports Podcast as Matt shovels some food in his mouth right as the show is going down.
You gotta at least tell us what you're eating.
Right.
Pasta salad. Oh.
Preferably
Pasta
not
salad.
with a mouthful.
Pasta salad.
Okay, well, there you go. Pasta salad making a special feature on the Casual Sports Podcast this week. Well, welcome in, everybody. Final week of July coming up here. We got a long week ahead of us, but once we get down to August, boys, it is just about time to shine for football. So, anything going on this week that you guys caught in the sports world, or can we just jump right into whatever else we got planned?
Yes.
All right,
So,
go ahead, Matt.
Oh, man. We talked about, I believe it was the SRX series coming to Sharon Speedway. Alec, I remember we were talking about that a long time ago. That happened this past Saturday. My dad was in attendance. Man, what a race that was. Chase Elliott actually ended up winning, but how about all these drivers that were there? Tony Stewart came in a close second. You had Greg Biffle was there. You had an Andretti there, so like the grandson of Mario Andretti was racing there. Another IndyCar racer was there. I believe his last name is Kanan. Michael Waltrip was there. So you had a stacked field of, NASCAR drivers there. Ryan and Dave Blaney were there as well. But I heard it was a very exciting race, and too bad I wasn't in attendance for it. But that's pretty cool. Like something that big coming to this small little town. I mean, that's just right up the street. Yeah. So that's pretty fascinating.
Well, Matt, you weren't on last Friday, but let's get your take on this since it's NASCAR, a little bit more your world than Mike or I's. What were your thoughts on NASCAR now racing in downtown Chicago next season?
Cool. All right, so
I'm asking him a question as he's shoveling food in his mouth.
Listen,
Matt, throw the pasta salad to the side.
Eat it in an hour. On this show, I do this show from the beach, from anywhere I can.
You're a little too relaxed, a little too casual, Matt.
I mean, people know by now that I do whatever.
People know Matt by now.
People know Matt by now. Let's just kick him out of here.
Okay. So what was it again? They're racing in downtown Chicago?
Yes, NASCAR is teaming up with IMSA, and they're going to do races in downtown Chicago for a weekend on the streets of Chicago.
So on the streets. Wow.
Yes, going through downtown Chicago.
Oh, man, that's
Matt, it's kind of similar to that one car race they had in Miami like a couple months ago.
Yeah, okay.
Similar
so it's kind of like, all right, so it's kind of like Monaco. But
it's exactly what the F1 does. F1 races on regular streets. Yeah. Granted, some of them have been regular streets turned into race courses, but no, this is strictly downtown streets of Chicago.
All right, so I like how they're keeping up with mainstream. They're updating it. It's not just the same old boring NASCAR where they're going in circles. They're starting to adapt the fun events of it. We saw them this past year. We saw them race at the Coliseum. I like that. They're racing at football stadiums. Now you're moving them to, streets. So I like it. I mean, it makes it less boring, honestly. I mean, everybody loves watching F1 or even IndyCar racing because, IndyCar, they go in circles, but everybody loves watching the F1 because it's not going in circles all the time. It's different turns and all that stuff. They make a right turn instead of a left turn every time. So I don't know. I like it. It's pretty exciting. I bet you it's going to get a few more million fans that get in and watch it. I'm sure. I mean, I watch it. If I wasn't a fan, I'd watch it. So
maybe, yeah, we'll see. But I mean, that was catching up from last week a little bit. Let's jump into something Mike and I were talking about after the show last week. Obviously, fans not privy to what goes on after the show, but Matt, we were bringing up in the college football landscape best conferences for certain positions, and one of them we're gonna start off quarterback wise. Best quarterback conference, and let me break down some numbers for you as Matt continues eating his pasta salad.
Good time for you to eat it while you're not talking,
right,
Matt.
Right.
Just for future reference.
I'll put myself on the bigger screen that way. Matt gets a little hidden down there.
For future reference, Matt.
Okay, so the Pac-12, they're going to be returning 6 out of their 10 leading passers from last year, class headlined by Jaden DeLaura. Pac-12 didn't see any major passers, didn't have a single passer over 3,000 yards this past season. In the American, they will be returning 9 out of their 10 leading passers, headlined by Tanner Mordecai out of SMU. Huge comeback this year. We're expecting big things out of that team. Into the Conference USA, 7 out of their 10 leading passers. Again, not a conference that saw a lot of big passers, and some of their biggest ones, quarterback for Marshall, in fact, no longer playing in the Conference USA last year or this year. They're losing their top 2 passers, and Bailey Zapp, who went for almost 6,000 and led the nation, and Grant Wells for Marshall, who went down into the Sun Belt Conference. So keep that in mind. Top 2 gone from Conference USA. After that, we go ahead and look into the Big 12. Big 12 brings back just 6 out of their 10 passers from last year. Obviously, losing a few into the transfer portal. Oklahoma's losing both of their starting quarterbacks in Caleb Williams and Spencer Rattler. Rattler's down to South Carolina in the SEC. Caleb Williams going out to USC with Lincoln Riley. Texas, they do return their starter from last year, but the expectation is Quinn Ewers is going to take over as the starting man at University of Texas. So that's going to be a big loss. And they're being headlined by Jarrett Doge, the quarterback out of West Virginia. Had a good season last year, but his sack numbers were huge. He was sacked a total of 35 times in that last season. They're not going to win football games, even with his great passing. Next conference, Big Ten. This is one you got to like. 8 out of their 10 starters, or 8 out of their 10 top 10 guys come back. Obviously headlined by C.J. Stroud, the biggest quarterback in football going into the season. Just named Big Ten preseason offensive player of the year. And obviously a lot of talent in the higher echelon of the group. Maybe doesn't have as much depth. They got a lot of returners, but it's not a great. They only have one returning 4,000-yard quarterback, and that's CJ Stroud. The next highest is Taolia Tagovailoa, 3,800 passing yards for him last season, and no one other than CJ Stroud even above 30 touchdowns. So the Big Ten, they got a lot of returning guys, but not a lot, I think, to look forward to this year in terms of skill level going high. After the Big Ten here, down into the MAC conference. MAC, they got 8 out of their 10 returning guys coming back, led by Western Michigan quarterback Caleb Ellaby, 3,200 passing yards last year. Touchdown interception ratio was good, about 3-1 for him. But you look down, not a very sophisticated group that you got going on. I mean, you got a lot of low yardage type of guys. I'm not looking at this as one of those best conferences, but they're going to be deep and they're going to provide some fun matchups. 9 out of their top 10 guys all threw for over 9,000 yards last season. After the MAC, you go down to the Mountain West. The Mountain West returns 9 out of their 10 starting quarterbacks. The only one they lose is Carson Strong, who was one of the best quarterbacks in this last year's draft. But Jake Haener out of Fresno State, 4,000-yard man, returns, actually averaged more yards per play than Carson Strong. Touchdown to interception ratio about the same there, 11-3. Not a bad mark to see for Jake Haener to lead that conference this year. Pac-12, I mentioned they're not doing great. The SEC now is where you look at some elite passing going on. They returned 8 out of their 10 best passers from last season. The top 14 quarterbacks in the league, all in the conference, all threw for over 1,000 yards. 2 4,000-yard guys returning. Their only loss, you got Matt Corral and there was one more in there that graduated. So when you look at depth overall, SEC is definitely the one to watch out for. Down in the Sun Belt, Chase Bryce is obviously the big name down there from Appalachian State. He's gone, though. Levi Lewis takes over as the top guy. No 3,000-yard quarterbacks in the Sun Belt. So they're one. It's got decent depth, 11 guys that were over 1,000 yards passing, but that's not a huge accomplishment. So I think when you look overall, also I forgot to mention ACC, and I think this is one you got to watch out for. University of Virginia quarterback Brennan Armstrong led the conference last year with 4,449 yards, which was 4th in the nation. Comes out of Ohio as well from Shelby, and the ACC as a group returns 8 out of their 10 starters. They're putting out 2 4,000-yard quarterbacks, also returning a 3,000-yard quarterback in Devin Leary out of North Carolina State, Malik Cunningham, Tyler Van Dyke from Miami at almost 3,000 yards. Gunnar Holmberg had 2,300. DJ Uiagalelei was still a 2,000-yard quarterback. Guys, I think when we look overall as a group here, as I read through all the stats to get us started on this conversation, now I want to go SEC. I think I really like the depth down there, but I really like the top of this ACC. I think when you look overall at quarterbacks, the ACC is one to watch out for this season.
By the way,
Yeah.
am I the only one that forgot Bo Nix was in Oregon?
Oh gosh.
Did you guys know that?
I now that you mention it, I remember, but I did not.
I did not.
Right off the top of my head.
I thought he was done playing college. I feel like he's been around for like 5 years, but I just looked earlier and I heard somebody talking today that he was in Oregon. I was like, oh, well, I didn't know that.
I heard it when it came out, but I forgot.
Yeah, I just forgot. I don't know, Alec. This is a tough conversation. There's so many different groups and there's so many different conferences, but I think receiving wise, I think you always got to give it to either Big Ten or SEC, to be honest, because you always got Ohio State. Quarterbacks, though, I think.
Yeah, we're not talking wide receiver. We're talking quarterback.
It's hard because, like
I think
like I said, it's probably not Big Ten because they really only have CJ Stroud, so it's not Big Ten.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. Like, I think there's some quarterbacks out there that are really good, but they're like the only one that's good in that division.
My thing, I think, when you look at this, out of the power, how about we rank Power 5? Because going outside of that gets a little bit odd. I got Pac-12 last place. I mean, they didn't have a 3,000-yard guy last year, and their best guy in Anthony Brown is gone out of Oregon. Bo Nix is going to be taken over as the starter. Anthony Brown, now playing for the Baltimore Ravens, is one of their reserves behind Lamar Jackson, probably going to be used on a practice squad, if I had to guess what's going on there. After that, I mean, it probably does become the Big 12, just a step behind, I think, the Big 10, who would sit third. I would put the ACC in second because they have a really good top half, and it has a quick fall off. But when you look at Brennan Armstrong, Sam Hartman, Devin Leary, all guys that were dominant last year, especially Devin Leary, flew under the radar. A 7-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, a QBR that led the conference of 157, averaged 8 yards per play with a 65.7% completion percentage, which was among the highest in conference play last year for the ACC. And his numbers just behind Kenny Pickett, who obviously was one of the top quarterbacks in the class. When you look at these top guys for the ACC, how can you not be impressed by what they got? And, you know, obviously they're losing 2 guys, Sam Howell and Kenny Pickett, but I think you can kind of look beyond that and see what this team has in total. Malik Cunningham returns to Louisville. They got a really great class. He was top in running. He was one of the top 10 guys in rushing for the ACC and top 10 in passing. He's a guy to watch out for as well. Potential Heisman. He's putting up Lamar Jackson numbers at the same university. I really like the ACC. I'm only putting the SEC over them because they have so much more depth. When you talk about their 2,000-yard passers, I mean, they're putting up every single school has a passer that if you sent to any other university would probably be up there, if not leading most conferences. When you go down to the last 2,000-yard passer, it's Zach Calzada out of Texas A&M. And while he only has a touchdown interception ratio of 2-to-1, keep in mind the defenses that he's going up against as well. He's going up against some top-level ones, especially from this past season. Then you even go up Connor Bazelak out of Mizzou, 2,500. His touchdown interception ratio, not great, but he's also not playing on a team that has amazing wide receivers. You just look throughout this conference, and it's just amazing quarterback out of amazing quarterback. When you go down KJ Jefferson, who was actually the ninth best quarterback passing yards wise in the conference, he had 2,600 yards, and that means there's 8 guys above him, and just about every single one outside of Matt Corral is returning this year. SEC, their depth is impeccable this upcoming season when it comes to that quarterback position.
I think with the SEC, it's their depth too, and like it's more top heavy, but like you said, it evens out towards the bottom because they have all the big names with Bryce Young and Will Levis. and Stetson Bennett, who's still coming back.
Will Levis, man, the mayonnaise.
They still have KJ Jefferson, Arkansas, Spencer Rattler.
Can we not forget about maybe the best underrated quarterback in the nation, Will Rogers out of Mississippi State?
Yeah,
third
I was gonna
last
go to
year
him.
in passing yards, tied for 7th in touchdowns, and his touchdown to interception ratio is about 4-1. He had a QBR last year of 74 as well, which was top 30 in the nation. He only had 9 interceptions to 36 touchdowns. This is one hell of a player we have going on, and he's flying under the radar. And he probably would have been up for the Heisman conversation if it wasn't for the fact Bryce Young was also playing in the conference. But Will Rogers had a much better completion percentage than Bryce Young. He's just not surrounded by playmakers. You put Will Rogers on Alabama, Alabama wins that national championship last year. He's a better quarterback, in my opinion, than we have in Bryce Young, and that's saying something. That completion percentage last year is so much higher. And you go, oh, well, Bryce Young must have thrown it a lot more. No. Bryce Young had 547 attempts to 366 completions. Will Rogers had 683 attempts to 505 completions. That's a huge jump when you talk about that completion percentage. That's why there's nearly a 7% difference between those two. The QB rating for Bryce Young is higher. Bryce Young took more sacks and obviously had more touchdowns and less interceptions. But look who's around him. Will Rogers is making these plays with guys that will never touch an NFL turf, while Bryce Young is playing with an NFL-ready team.
If you just Google like top SEC quarterbacks, it's not even the whole conference. It's just this list
I like
right here.
that guy coming out of Tennessee too, Hooker. I think he's going to be better
Hooker
this year.
Yes, I mean, how about this one? This is maybe the most impressive stat of a quarterback last season. Hendon Hooker, 31 touchdowns, 3 interceptions,
and like almost 3,000 yards.
Yeah, almost 3,000 yards.
And we were talking ACC. I like that dude from Miami, the guy who replaced King. I think his name's Van Dyke.
Yeah, Tyler Van Dyke, 2,900 yards, 25-6 touchdown to interception ratio, and comes in with a completion percentage of 62.3% into the season. When you see the improvements Miami is going to be making, you hope that Tyler Van Dyke can kind of be that headliner for that group. And I really like Brennan Armstrong, but yeah, having Van Dyke who's going into his redshirt sophomore season, and was 11th in the nation in QBR, top 50 in passing yards, nearly top 25 in touchdowns, and nearly top 25 in interceptions. He's a guy you got to watch out for, and that's who Mario Cristobal is going to be looking at to go, hey, the job is yours. But I don't think you can forget about Sam Hartman either. This dude's going into, I believe, his fifth season with the team, and due to some of those COVID years, I think he's still only registered in as a junior going into the season. I think a super redshirt junior, but it's his 5th year with the team because of all this COVID stuff. His eligibility has been way extended. So you got to watch out for Sam Hartman this year, I believe.
You know, a guy like him, Alex, last week we forgot he was even coming back, but I wanted to switch back to SEC. I was going to say this before you guys moved over. I think a lot of people forget how good KJ Jefferson started out last year. And pretty much, I know the team struggled down the stretch, but he was pretty consistent. I mean, his stats last year.
You got to watch out for KJ Jefferson and Arkansas. I mean, we saw it when I put together, my rankings here. I'll pull it up real quick. I had Arkansas as the second best team in the West at 9-3 overall. So yeah, I'm right there with you, Mike. I like KJ Jefferson. Only 4 interceptions to 21 touchdowns and had an average yard per play of 9.1. He only threw the ball 294 times, and he had over half as many. He had about half as many yards as Bryce Young did on half the attempts. So, yeah. I mean, if you're doubling KJ Jefferson's number, if he has the amount of attempts that Bryce Young has, well, KJ Jefferson, better completion percentage, you'd have more yards, a better average per play, basically has the same long. Bryce Young's longest pass last year, 94. KJ was 91. Touchdowns would go from 21 to 42, which is 5 behind Bryce Young. And interceptions would go from 4 to 8, which is 1 more than Bryce Young. And if you double his sacks, maybe the most impressive thing, the fact that he didn't have half as many attempts, didn't get as much chances. He was sacked 27 times. If you were to double that with it, he sacked 54 times of putting up the same numbers as Bryce Young, who was sacked 39 times. The quarterback rating for KJ Jefferson was 164.7. If you double all of his numbers, that rating is going to go up with those more attempts and plays to boost that overall rating of the QBR. KJ Jefferson, if he had the amount of attempts of Will Rogers, however, KJ Jefferson would have been far and away the best quarterback in the conference and have won the Heisman.
And his passing yards, he had 2,676 passing yards, and he had 146 carries for 664 yards and 6 touchdowns. And don't forget, this guy's pretty big, and he's hard to bring down when he's running, too. So that's another part of his game that it's hard to defend him.
KJ Jefferson was 13th in the SEC in rushing yards last year.
Yeah.
He's gonna be
and that
sick
includes
in the
the
NFL.
actual running backs. Yes.
I'm gonna love this dude in the NFL. He's gonna be sick.
If he ever gets that shot, he needs to.
Arkansas
needs to give him the situation. They need to give him the ball this year. That's the situation they're going into. It needs to be KJ Jefferson's time to shine down in the SEC because his numbers are all there. He is the guy, and the team hasn't helped him become the focal point of the offense that he really should be. I mean, you look at this team overall, and that offense alone should be enough to propel them if they weren't playing in the SEC. We'll get down to the best defensive conferences here in a little bit, but Arkansas' defense last year was top 50. You think this is a team that should be able to compete, but for some reason, they kind of fell off last year. And if KJ Jefferson takes over this team, if they play like they should, and like they definitely have the potential to, they could win the SEC and take this away from Alabama. That's a lot. That's a big call. But when you look at this West, out of those teams below Alabama favored to win it, I have Arkansas, the number one team outside of Alabama, to take that division.
Yeah,
and if they can beat Bama, then they can take whoever is coming down to that East.
Yeah, because like he's their guy coming in. He was their guy last year too, but I think this year too, he's more experienced. Like I said, his big frame too, and he's running the ball that many times. Like I just said, he's hard to bring down. You guys watch this guy. He's not your typical size quarterback. He's a little bit taller. He's more like built a little bit more. So he's hard to bring down when they run him that many times. He might even run it more this year.
Yeah. He's like Steve McNair.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Fair enough. Well, how about we transition to the next position? We'll go back to quarterbacks probably a little later in the show as we're getting deeper into it. But running back position.
Big Ten.
This is... We'll get to that. This is one of those spots where it's a little even across the nation because the Pac-12 returns 2 1,000-yard guys. Zach Charbonnet is the top guy, transferred in from Michigan this past season. The American returns 2 1,000-yard guys, headlined by Keaton Mitchell. The Mountain West returns 3 1,000-yard guys, headlined by Brad Roberts. Conference USA, highlighted by Dwayne McBride. They have 2 1,000-yard guys. The Big Ten has 4 1,000-yard guys, headlined by Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin. Watch out for the Badgers this year. Big 12, headlined by the Kansas State Deuce Vaughn, 2 1,000-yard guys. Beyond Robinson, the other guy, they lost a lot of their top rushers from last year, the Big 12. I'm worried about how that conference is going to do running the football this year. ACC, also 2 1,000-yard guys. Sean Tucker leads the class. Chris Rodriguez of the SEC is one of 2 1,000-yard rushers coming back. The Sun Belt is the only conference that returns just one guy that was a 1,000-yard rusher last season. That was Nate Knoll. And the MAC returns the number one rusher in all of college football in Lou Nichols III. And the MAC also returns 5 1,000-yard rushers. So when you go overall, who has the best running back depth-wise, I'm giving it to the MAC. And that's a little weird to go out. But when you look at the way the MAC plays football, they run the football. And when you look at the guys they got, well, running the football, Lou Nichols, 1,800 yards last year with 16 touchdowns. Then Bryant Koback out of Toledo, 1,400 yards, had a higher yard per carry than Lou Nichols and had 15 touchdowns. Number 3 guys, Marquez Cooper out of Kent State, 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns. And it goes on and on. This MAC conference, they're legit when it comes to running the football. If they had offensive lines, the MAC conference would have dominated last year's bowl season. And that's the biggest thing, if they had offensive lines that could compete against those Power 5 teams. But when I think you look at strictly running backs, who's got the group that has the most running backs likely to go to the NFL, I might even say it's the MAC still in that conversation because you look at how many they have and how they continuously seem to dominate. All top of their top 6 guys from last season, they're only losing one of them to the NFL, all averaged over 5 yards per carry.
And that's their type of brand of football over there. We keep
right,
talking
that's
about
their brand of football, and obviously they're the best at it.
Yeah.
But number 2, it's the Big Ten. I mean, obviously, Kenneth Walker gone. Hassan Haskins gone, but Braylon Allen leads this class 1,200 yards last season, a dozen touchdowns. Travion Henderson is the guy I'd probably say more so leads the class. He did have 20 less yards than Braylon Allen, but he also had 3 more touchdowns along the season with 3 less attempts overall. Tyler Goodson out of Iowa, third guy coming into the season. Evan Hull out of Northwestern, poised for a big year. Chase Brown out of Illinois. I like to see the direction he's going. Then you're going to have Blake Corum, who was only a 952-yard guy last year, but now he's going into his 3rd season with the team. He sat behind Hassan Haskins. He has a win over Ohio State in his belt. That should give him some confidence. And obviously, Haskins was the story of last year's the game between Ohio State and Michigan. Blake Corum, he's stepping into a spot where the offensive line pretty much comes back intact with a relatively intact offense as well from last season. The only step back for Michigan is that defensive side. If Blake Corum can step into the role Hassan Haskins did last year, phenomenal. You look at last year in the Big Ten, the best 1-2 punch running back positions was in Michigan with Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum. Those guys combined for over 2,000 yards of offense.
Matt, you screamed out Big Ten. Let's hear it.
I like everybody in the Big Ten. Especially, I hate to say it, but man, I'm running back for the Buckeyes, man, is something else. And I like the guy with Wisconsin. That first game, he really lit up Penn State, and we just managed to hold them off. What about that guy with Illinois too, that ran all over Penn State too? What was his name?
A lot of guys ran over Penn State last year, man.
Yeah, but this dude was pretty good, and I think he had. I forget. I gotta look up this guy's name, but he's a big dude, big truck type of guy. I gotta go look. But
Matt, are you sure
guys coming in
Wisconsin
too?
last year?
Huh?
You sure you played Wisconsin last year?
We played Wisconsin. That was the first game.
Braylon Allen didn't play.
Oh, he was talking about the running back from Illinois that ran on us. That's what he said.
Yeah.
No, okay. At first you went Braylon Allen, and then I think you switched over really quickly. All right.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But we have a bunch of new guys coming in too. Penn State with Singleton, he's supposed to be pretty good, so we're just gonna have to wait and see. But I like the Big Ten. I don't know. They got a lot of good guys. I know a lot of guys left.
They got a lot of depth.
Haskins.
I think is one of the biggest thing when I think you look at the Big Ten.
Solid.
When you go down, they had 20 guys in the Big Ten last year with 500 rushing yards or more. That's a lot to run the football. 20 guys. ACC, they actually did a little better. They had 25 who had more than that. But when you look at the top-heavy side of it, that Big Ten is elite when it comes to running backs. And when you talk about great running backs, top-heavy last year was the Big 12, yet they only had 15 guys that were more than 500 yards on that last season. But coming into this season, again, I do kind of have to lean again towards the ACC. I think when you kind of look at their group all in all, they don't return a lot of their 1,000-yard guys, but they also had 5 1,000-yard or 4 1,000-yard running backs. Malik Cunningham, a quarterback. They have maybe one of the most mobile quarterback conferences out there is the ACC, and that definitely bolsters up their rushing stats because out of those top 25 guys that had 500 yards or more, I think 5 of them, I'm counting right now, were quarterbacks. So they also had the same amount of running backs the Big Ten did above 500 yards this last season.
And I think the Big 12 is still pretty top heavy. Like I said, I think they lost a lot. They might struggle this year running the football, but if you look at any of these lists that I've looked through a couple of these lists as we're talking about top running backs throughout college football, Bijan Robinson and Deuce Vaughn are pretty much always 1 and 2. So if you look down the list, there's nobody else from the Big 12. So they're pretty top heavy in the running back department.
They definitely are this year. You got to watch out from that quarterback though from Oklahoma State. Great 1-2 punch, Spencer Sanders. This dude's going to do it in the air and on the ground. He had Jalen Warren last season go for 1,200 yards as a running back. Jalen Warren is now playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers as a rookie this season. So we'll see how that works. Who's going to fill in at that spot? But Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy, that dude knows how to reload talent. He's gonna have to find something here because Oklahoma State's backup running back Dominic Richardson only had 373 yards last season. That was still 20th in the Big 12, but not what they're going to need to replace. But I like to look potentially at that quarterback running back duo there in Oklahoma State. But yeah, Mike, when you're talking about best running backs in this conference, Bijan Robinson and Deuce Vaughn, they're both right in that mix. And that top level talent is gone. Abraham Smith, maybe the biggest one, who's now playing with New Orleans. You got to watch out for him actually to sneak in behind Kamara a couple times this season. Breece Hall gone, Kennedy Brooks gone. A lot of talent's gone out of this Big 12. I'm interested to see who steps up. And I think when you kind of look overall at this conference, one team I don't really think we often look at, but maybe should this year, West Virginia. They got their quarterback. That's what we always say with this team. They just need a quarterback, and they're going to have junior running back Tony Mathis Jr. coming in. Didn't have a big year last year, but he did have 4.3 yards per carries. He was this number 2 running back. Their number 1 running back last year, and Letty Brown, went over 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns. Now he's playing for the Chargers, so we saw how that went. It wasn't a great year for that team all in all, but I think West Virginia, that second year, they might jump.
They might. But I found this guy, the guy from Illinois. So he was a freshman last year, true freshman. McCray, remember him, Mike? Josh McCray. I do. Yeah, this dude's a truck. I mean, 112. He only had 112 carries on the year, 549 rushing yards. But I mean, against Penn State, it says here 142 yards against, and that was the most rushing yards ever by an Illini true freshman against a ranked opponent. So that's pretty big right there. And,
keep in mind, he also had 9 overtimes to do that.
Hey, it doesn't matter. It still happened. But, I mean, we'll have to see here. I mean, hopefully he can be better. I mean, they have that other guy, too, that's pretty good as well. So they have like a 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to be set up good this year. Chase Brown, the number 1 guy, Joshua McCray, number 2.
They actually, I don't know how good, I'm not going out on a limb here, but they actually might be more respectable this year.
They might. Illinois. I like their coach.
I like Illinois. See where I have them, I think 5-7 this year. I got the banner in the way here at the bottom. Yeah, I got them
better than they've been.
Last of the West, but that looks like a really solid West this season because they're all beating up on one another. But 5-7 for Illinois this year, I like that.
Yeah.
Especially what were they? What was their record all in all last year? It was 5-7. So to repeat that, and I don't think
have another win or two.
And they can definitely go over that 5 win total.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah. And I like and McCray's like their second guy too. I mean, Chase Brown's pretty good too. He's pretty capable. So yeah, look at him. He's on. I think Chase Brown can probably be on that Maxwell Award list, like the watch list a little bit. I think.
Doak Walker running back award. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. That too. But there's a Maxwell Award as well. But he had over 1,000 yards last year too. So we're just gonna have to see. I think that's a 1-2 punch right there that Illinois needs. Illinois hasn't been good since what? Since they had Rashard Mendenhall. I remember that. The Fighting Illini with Mendenhall.
That's your boy, Matt.
Ohio State when they beat Ohio State. Sorry, Alec. But I remember that.
I mean, you have to go back that far to name the last time Illinois beat Ohio State. I don't think
that was the last time. That was the last time. I think.
That's your boy, Matt. Mendenhall.
Yeah, he played for Pittsburgh. Oh yeah, he quit to be a writer. He's a writer now.
He's trying to be like us, or me at least.
He put on a couple good years with Pittsburgh. But...
Yeah. Wow, that's kind of funny. Yeah, Illinois has only won it. That was 2007. They won it 28-21 over Ohio State.
Remember,
did it in Columbus, and they only had one other win this century against Ohio State, and that was 2001. So Ohio State's won 8 in a row.
Doesn't happen very often, but when it does, you remember.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I mean, you look at their last winning season was that 2011 year, and it was 2011. They still lost to Ohio State that year. Win got vacated, I believe, though, for that one. But they went. I mean, their winning record was 7-6, and they won their bowl game. They were 6-6 in the regular season. They were 6-6 in the regular season in 2010. The last time, in my opinion, they had a true winning record was that 2007 year, and then they lost in the Rose Bowl.
Remember?
Yeah.
But when you really say the last time it's good, I think when you call a team good, they have to put together consistent years. And for that, I mean, the last time they had back-to-back, like, actual winning seasons where they didn't get the winning season because of a bowl game was 1989 and 1990. They went 10-2 in the Big Ten, or overall 7-1 in Big Ten conference play, won the Citrus Bowl, finished 10-2. Then the next year they went 8-4, lost the Hall of Fame Bowl. That was under John Malkovich a long time ago. John Malkovich stopped being the head coach there in 91, and they haven't really had back-to-back good seasons since. Malkovich had a 4-year stint there and never had a losing record with the team. I believe he's the only coach in their history that can claim that. That's a long time.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
I'm looking back in their entire history, and I got one here, and you have to go back over 100 years to Arthur Hall in 1907. They went 3-2. 08 they went 5-1-1. 09 they went 5-2, and then in 1910 they had a perfect season of 7-0. 1911 they went 4-2-1. 1912 they went 3-3-1. That was the end of Arthur Hall's coaching tenure in Illinois. That's back when they played in the Western Conference before most schools were playing football.
Wow.
So you have to go pre-World War I to the last time that Illinois has really, had multiple, more than three good years in a row. We'll see what they have. The odds are not in their favor is basically what we're going at here.
We'll see.
We'll see. Obviously we'll see. But how about we flip this over? We've got a lot of running back talk. How about defensive talk? Who's the best defensive conferences coming into this year? Here's the number for you. So my category was how many teams did you have that held their opponents under 25 points last year? And this is the numbers that surprised me. So a lot of people would go SEC. We'll get down to that. Pac-12 had 5. American Conference had just 2. The Mountain West had 6. Conference USA had just 3. Well, they actually had 4, but one of them is now playing in the Sun Belt in Marshall. The Big Ten is the number one conference when it comes to defense. 10 of their 14 teams held their opponents under 25 points last year. Blame that partially, I think, on the offensive side, lacking in the Big Ten last year. Big 12 had 5. ACC had 5. SEC had 7. Sun Belt had 4. MAC had just 2. And the number one defense in all of college football came out of the Big Ten. 2 out of the top 3 came out of the Big Ten. And, you look at the Big Ten, that defense is Big Ten's calling card. It has been for a while. And guys, I know we're Big Ten guys, and you might have some bias this way, but I think the best defensive conference still plays in the Midwest, and that's the Big Ten.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a huge argument.
No.
I agree. Well, that makes this conversation really short.
Well, still, Alec, we talked about to close out the week last week. The best team last year defensively in the SEC was Georgia, and they still may be good this year, but they took a step back. It's usually either SEC or Big Ten, but like you just said, 10 teams last year held their opponents 25 or under less. Like, what else do you need as stat-wise?
Yeah,
I'm not trying to be short here, but that's just how it is.
Yeah, no, to me, the most important defensive rating is points. That's the only stat defensively that matters.
What are you giving up?
You give up 10,000 yards, but if you stop them in the red zone every time and held them to a field goal, then you did your job defensively. There's a whole field that gets played, and I think that the defensive side, the only stat that ever matters is points against, and that was the category Georgia led by far in. Clemson was next with 15, but Michigan was top 4 in that category, 16.1. Wisconsin then sat behind Cincinnati, behind Michigan with 16.4. Penn State was next, 16.8. Minnesota just a couple more spots down, 18.3. When you're looking down this list of best defenses in football, it's Big Ten, somebody else Big Ten, somebody Big Ten, Big Ten, Big Ten, somebody else Big Ten. You don't see that in all these other conferences, even the SEC. Here's the SEC's best. Georgia, then you go down 2 spots to Texas A&M. After that, you got to drop for a while before you eventually end up. Well, hold on, I'm still looking down about 20 teams, and here's Alabama, who has the second best defense or third best defense in the SEC last year, and they were allowing over 20 points per game. And I can pick out 5 Big Ten teams that all did better than that defensively last year. Now, maybe not better defensive players, but a better defensive unit, I think, is what you go for here. Even Ohio State, who, as we talked about, has an absolutely terrible defense. Defense cost them pretty much every game that they lost last season. Ohio State still only allowed 20.9 points per game.
And we were going to talk about, because I was going to say this when Matt was talking about the Illinois running back, and he pretty much did run over Penn State last year in that game. But other than that, Alec, I just talked about 10, like you said, 10 out of the 14 teams held their teams under that amount of points. I don't care. It's what you're giving up at the end of the final tally. I don't care if you give up all this yards. Penn State, they gave up all these chunk plays last year, and they only gave 125 points twice.
We lost to Iowa too.
I mean, the biggest reason you guys were losing games, you didn't have an offense.
No, defense was everything last year, and that goes for. Go ahead, Matt.
Wasn't that the week after we lost to Iowa? We lost to Illinois.
Well, there was a bye, and then
in 9 overtimes, and you only had a total of 18 points.
Yeah,
that was frustrating. After a bye, that's what happens.
Right.
Clifford wasn't really 100%. I know he had that bye week in between there, but I mean, he wasn't 100%.
And that's on James Franklin.
It is.
That's on James Franklin.
The whole
coaching staff should be able to beat Illinois
after a bye.
I would say Penn State should be able to beat Illinois in general. It doesn't need to be after a bye. We just went back the last time. Illinois hasn't had a winning record in the last 10 years. Penn State should be able to walk all over them, especially when they claim to be one of the best teams in the Big Ten. Those claims, and I know you guys are both Penn State fans, you will defend your teams to the day you die, and I respect that. But Penn State is quickly falling off as a top 3 school in the Big Ten. Quickly falling off. I mean, last year it was Ohio State, Michigan, and I'd probably go Iowa. Penn State was not in that conversation.
I'm not
in the last couple of years.
I told you guys 3 times last week. When my teams need criticized, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Nothing you're saying is wrong. I'm not arguing anything.
Take a minute to rebuild it. I mean, I don't think this is going to be the year because we have Clifford still, but you never know. He might.
And I know we're going back into this another time, and we've talked about it a lot already. But
yeah, we don't have to talk about our team the whole time, Matt.
Yeah.
But Penn State, in my opinion, the level that they were playing at, shouldn't have needed a rebuild. Look around in the Big Ten right now. Kirk Ferentz, he needs a rebuild. He's an older coach. He has an older style. It doesn't really work. But James Franklin was brought in. He's had plenty of time to build this program up. And he has. We've seen him at the highest powers. Why did he fall off? I think maybe this is the bigger question than if he is on the hot seat or what's the future hold. What happened with Penn State? Why was there this big fall? You guys are fans. You follow it more than I. What was, in your guys' opinion, what was this leading cause of this fall off? Because I think by every college football standard, Penn State should not have fallen off the way they did.
I don't know if it's – I don't really know if it's coach. You're going to have questionable coaches everywhere. James Franklin did this wrong. He did this right. You're going to have that everywhere. But I think I said this last year when we were having this conversation. I don't think it's all on him because he already did rebuild. The first time he rebuilt them rather quickly. I think after his first 2 years, they were back in where they should have been. So it's not all on him. Is it more of a talent gap? I think it's more that than coaching. And I don't really know why it is either, because I know you're going to get most guys going to Ohio State in the Big Ten, but still, there's how many other guys that you can recruit nationally from. And I think after Matt, it probably does come down to quarterback. Sometimes I do stick up for Sean Clifford, but this team competed with Trace McSorley. They were in the mix with Trace McSorley and Barkley. Yeah. That was the prime of James Franklin's career there.
All those 3 years that he was there, I mean, those final 3 years, they had the chance to beat Ohio State. The 1 year they did, the next 2 they lost by 1 point. They blew the huge lead, and then there was the game where they decided to, give the ball to their running back instead of having McSorley take it. Do you remember that? I was so mad, but I mean, the guy
4th and 5 against Chase Young, though, you're not getting anything.
The whole game, and he didn't have the ball in his hand.
Yeah, I still don't know why you ran it against Chase Young.
It doesn't matter anyways.
Right.
Huh?
4th and 5 against Chase Young. Not too many players are going to work against that.
Yeah. No, but give.
I think anything would have worked maybe a little better than you had a chance if you weren't running the football against at the time what was one of the best defensive lines. I mean, when you look at Chase Young's defensive line that he had going along with them, it was a mean machine down there in
Yeah.
the trenches. Not a lot of guys were getting past that unit. But yeah, how about let's look at James Franklin's
That's James Franklin
schedule,
right
or
there.
not schedule, but record since he came into the conference. 2014, his first year, winning record. 2015, winning record. 2016, winning record, tied for first in the East, lost the Rose Bowl. 2017, winning record, won the Fiesta Bowl, tied for second in the Big Ten. 2018, winning record, third in the Big Ten, lost the Citrus Bowl. 2019, 11 wins, second in the Big Ten, won the Cotton Bowl. 2020, the COVID year, 4-5. And I know there was injuries involved, but every team was dealing with injuries and guys out. 4-5. And the next year, yeah, a winning record, 7-6, but you lose the bowl game in the Outback Bowl. And I know you guys had some guys sit out, but you lost 24-10.
Yeah, they couldn't do anything.
Razorbacks, who obviously had a great KJ Jefferson, who took home the MVP of that game. But this is just something right now I think you're looking at with Penn State. Yeah, they had a winning record, but are we going to do the same thing, a 7-6 again, just to get back to a Drew Allar year where you might see some hope? Because we keep talking about wait till Drew Allar. What if we wait till Drew Allar and Drew Allar isn't what everybody hoped he would be? What if he's just another Tate Martell? A high-rated player that
let's jump here. We can ask that.
You look from the region he's from, Medina. That's down the road from where I am. I know this region better than a lot of football analysts. I know Medina. My cousin went to Medina. My cousin played with Drew Allar. He knows the guy. But I also know Medina. It's an area with a lot of money. And just like Tate Martell, came from an area with a lot of money. And I think sometimes when you see this level of football player coming from this type of area, and I know this place, I am worried Drew Allar is not going to be the guy Penn State hopes he is.
I think he'd be pretty good. He's a great signal caller.
He's supposed to be all this.
He's supposed to be.
But what if we get down to this and he's not? Who else has James Franklin brought in at the quarterback spot that you can really go after Sean Clifford? We know who's up.
I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens in the future, but right now, nothing.
Exactly. And I know you mean you still got another year, but then are you willing to go with a true freshman after a bad year with Drew Allar, or are you going to do the same thing you've done with Sean Clifford? We'll take 4 years of mediocre.
Well, to be fair, you guys are saying, not Matt.
Yeah,
we're saying, are we willing to go with a true freshman? But you guys were both sitting here last week saying that Drew Allar should start week 1 this year.
Yeah, because I don't think you should sit 4 years with a quarterback that brings you mediocrity in Sean Clifford. That's where I said go with the true freshman. Is that really the best option? No, you should not be playing with a true freshman quarterback in the Big Ten. Ohio State played with a redshirt freshman quarterback last year, and you saw how that went. Yeah, he did really freaking amazing because he's a really great quarterback, but he was helped out by 3 of the best wide receivers in the country, one of the best freshman running backs in the country, and one of the best offensive-minded coaches in college football. Does Penn State have half of that? No. So, yeah, a freshman quarterback, I think, maybe sets you up in a better spot than Sean Clifford's mediocrity, but he's also not going to see the same production C.J. Stroud saw at Ohio State last year because he doesn't have the help at Penn State. I do think Penn State should look to Drew Allar to start this season because mediocrity should not be enough to be a starting quarterback in the Big Ten. We're supposed to be the number 2 conference in football, and we're allowing mediocrity to sit on what is supposed to be a top 5 program in the Big Ten. That's what I see wrong, and that's why I said Drew Allar should be looked at to start this season. But I'm still of that opinion. If Drew Allar doesn't pan out, who's next? Because when you look at top contending teams in college football, they're always two, three guys deep past your starter. Ohio State, you go look at them. They have they had last year 2 guys that could probably start anywhere in the country. C.J. Stroud, and then, oh shoot, my brain just forgot their backup quarterback. But then you look down at Texas, who obviously didn't have a great year, but they had Quinn Ewers as their backup, who's going to start this season. You wonder, is he going to be that level of guy? But he probably would have started on a lot of teams because they don't have that number 1 guy. Penn State has the number 1 guy sitting number 2. At least he's expected to be. My whole thing is if he's not what he's expected, does Penn State have anything left, or are we just going to see more crap from James Franklin and Penn State? This thing, I think you guys as fans should be watching out.
I do.
Do we have enough if Alar isn't that guy? And this is where I think you guys need to be jumping on James Franklin, because this isn't a shot at you guys, but I think it's a shot at Penn State fans. You go, oh, well, wait to Drew Alar.
Penn State fans jump over Sean Clifford. I read around James Franklin. They do. So I'll give them credit for that. Everywhere I read, they all rip him.
They've been calling for
most of them
for a while now, but they like the recruits that he's gotten in. Drew Alar, I mean, we're gonna have to wait and see on him. We got 6'5", 220. I mean, this guy is a coach's dream at quarterback. I mean, I'm 6'5", 220, but I'm not a good quarterback. But I mean, I mean, this guy. I mean, we've seen what he's done. Medina. I mean, you talked about the money side of that, but it is a football town too. Like the Ohio State goes to Medina too. I'm pretty sure and recruits there too. So I mean, to snag this guy from Ohio and bring him to PA, I think you guys start him right away. Or what if he leaves? Mike, what would we do if
that's what I was saying last week?
Goes somewhere else. Like what if he transfers to Ohio State?
He probably won't. But, I don't know.
But, you never know.
I would not rule out a transfer to Ohio State. The only reason I would maybe push it out the door is because Ohio State gave up recruiting on him and could see some bad blood. And maybe that's the reason he stays at Penn State, because he wants that shot at Ohio State, kind of get back on him and say, hey, you should have taken me.
What if he goes to Michigan? I'd hate it.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Jim Harbaugh is not a better recruiter or a better talker than James Franklin.
No.
I don't think Jim Harbaugh could
He's
talk
just a big name.
Drew Alar into Penn State for Michigan.
He's just a big coaching name with a big university. That's it.
The fact that James Franklin couldn't get a legacy player in Lloyd Carr into Carr to come to his university, and instead Carr went to his rival in Notre Dame, that gives me everything I need to know about James Franklin and his recruiting. Or not James, pardon me, Jim Harbaugh and his recruiting.
Jim Harbaugh. Yeah. But we're just going to have to wait and see. I mean, the big questions are on Drew Alar. Clifford's back. I think he's meeting with the commissioner about something this week. I don't know, about benefits or something. I don't know. But, I mean, I'd be pushing him out the door. Yeah. I don't know. You got to make that clear, like, hey, we have this guy.
Here's the thing I think you do with this season is you can make this like how you do it in the NFL. Have Sean Clifford go out there start it. Give Sean Clifford that immediate, hey, all right, you're our veteran. Go be the veteran. Go lead this team. And if he does well, keep him in there. But keep him on a short leash. Go, hey, we got a 5-star guy right behind you who's ready to take your spot. He was right there in training camps. We don't know if that's a thing or not. Training camps haven't really given us a lot of information yet. We'll get closer to that as we hit August and get ready for that season to roll. We'll get all the news out of there. But if we got Drew Alar this close, I'm keeping Sean Clifford on a short leash. Hey, you go out there and you have 2 interceptions in a game, that's going to be your last game played as a starting quarterback at Penn State. You're on a very short leash, because I got a guy who is in the waiting realm. He's sitting there in the green room ready to get his name called in that NFL draft. You're the guy standing in his way. Drew Alar should be in 2-3 years one of those first names called at the quarterback position in the NFL draft. That is his potential. Now it comes down to James Franklin and Penn State to push him in the right direction.
That's what I was going to say. What you do this season, Sean, if you want to go out, if you prove it and you play better than last year and you can take care of the ball and you beat good teams, I'll keep you out there.
It's in that first game too. He's going to have to do it because it's prime time in Purdue, September 1st, 8:00 on Fox. Like that's going to be the game.
You're getting that prime time to start.
Yeah,
you have to show up.
Yep.
And I think even more important past that. And I know this seems like a really weird spot to do it, but I want to see how he plays week 2 against Ohio. He's got an ABC noon game to start off the second Saturday of the year against a team he should go out and dominate in Ohio, the Bobcats. Should be a dominant performance. But I want to see how Sean Clifford plays after a big game week 1 and a big game coming after in Auburn. Can Sean Clifford can't keep his mindset right and win the game you should win against Ohio and put up good numbers. In that Ohio game, more than one interception, it would be terrible for Sean Clifford in this game. Sean Clifford should be aiming for a 300-yard, 3-touchdown, less than one interception game.
He should coast.
He should coast to that, too.
Yeah.
He should be looking around 170, 200 by halftime for yardage-wise.
That's the offensive line, too. That offensive line's got to be in shape this year. Man. I know they've in the past they've had some good guys come out with their offensive line, but I mean they've recruit really good there as well. But we're gonna have to see the offensive line.
By the way,
rebooted.
Weren't we talking defense? By the way,
yeah, we were talking defense, but I mean,
what do they say? A great defense is an even better offense.
That's true.
Actually, I think it's the other way around, but oh well. No, I mean, you guys made the defensive question real good. I went Big Ten. You went, yup, and that was it.
Well, I think it's. Oh, I didn't have much of an argument because I don't really think there is one.
Yeah,
I mean, Penn State's got a fairly well defense as well. I mean, we recruit really well there. I've talked about the young guys we have that I really think can blossom. This is the year to do it. And I mean, a mediocre offense is going to wear them down too. That's what happened last year. Their defense was great. It was. I mean, it wasn't great, but it was
not
good.
Great, but it was.
It was pretty decent.
Top 10.
Top 10, yeah. And then, that offense was not even, in the top 25. I mean, that was bad offense. Now we got a new running back and a new quarterback, and you're still going to go with that same guy who really hasn't done anything.
New receiver, too, Matt.
Huh?
New receiver, too.
Yeah, new receivers. Yep. I like Parker Washington. I like, who's the other guy?
Lambert Smith, and
Lambert Smith is gonna be sick, and who else?
Mitchell Tinsley, the transfer that came. I'm excited for him.
Me too, and I mean we always scrimmage up a big tight end too. We've had Pat Fryermuth, we've had Jesse James was really good back in the day, man. Whew. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. Penn State's like tight end U, like other than Iowa.
Nah, I don't think so.
Other than Iowa, I'd be going to Penn State to get some tight ends. I mean,
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't know. They've had a couple big tight ends. Pat Fryermuth.
All righty. Well, that's going to do it here for the Casual Sports Podcast. We're out of time. Power Hour coming up next on your Sports Network. I'm Alec. That's Matt. That's Mike. Matt, almost forgot here. Beast of the Week. Who was it?
I don't know. Us. I don't know. I'll think of something tomorrow.
All right. Well, come back tomorrow.